Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Michelle Eccles. I'm your moderator for today's program on work-life balance, and I welcome you to our program today. I'm really glad you've taken time out of your schedule to include this in your day. Hopefully you've got a good lunch that you're enjoying at the same time. Before we introduce our hosts, AWC Springfield President Brandy Renfro is going to kick things off for us.
Hi, everyone. I am Brandy Renfro, and thank you, Michelle. Welcome, everyone, to the webinar today on finding a work-life balance. I am also the Director of Communications for the Office of the Illinois Senate President. And to start us off today, if you would just please type in the chat your name and who you work for. And we encourage participation like this throughout the entire time. Going to be very interactive. I also want to thank our co-VPs of programming, Michelle Eccles and Lisa Richardson, for setting up a great program for us today. They work hard behind the scenes to bring interesting and engaging programs to our chapter. So to be sure that you're the first to know what events we're hosting, please follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. And I'll put the links to our pages in the chat. Also, if you're interested in becoming a member of our chapter, you can visit our website for more information, and I will also add that information to the chat. I also want to thank our moderator, Michelle Eccles, and our panelists, AWC member, Christy Broccardo Grove, and community leader, Tiffany Mathis. So thanks for joining us today, ladies. And with that, I'll turn it over to Michelle to begin our program.
Thank you, Brandy. And just a reminder to everyone, just to make things easier, to focus on our speakers. If everybody would shut off their video and make sure they're muted, that would be great. And then we'll go ahead and take questions throughout our program through the chat. And then we may ask you to engage. And if at that point you want to turn your video on, you're welcome to, because I know it's nice to see somebody when we're having these conversations. So without any further ado, I will go ahead and introduce our speakers. Again, this is our program on finding a work-life balance, and I had a great conversation with both Christy and Tiffany on this, and we were able to talk just, I don't know, probably a half hour just amongst ourselves, just about all of the things we had experienced in life. So I think this is going to be a really good session, and we do want it to be interactive. So if you know, something goes off and you have a light go off and you're thinking as they're talking that you want to share something, or that you want to ask a question, please let us know in chat and we'll get you as part of the conversation. It's not something where we're giving a big presentation, so it's definitely interactive. So Christy Broccardo Grove is our digital content manager for Color Republic, and that's a flower farm in Ecuador. It's serving brands nationwide, including Target, Sam's Club, Walmart, Whole Foods, Safeway, and Country Living magazine. Christy is a graphic designer, a writer, and a content marketer, and she specializes in email communications, social media, paid advertising, web design, and writing for search and SEO, I should say. And she taught visual communications at University of Illinois, where she earned her master's degree. She is past president and board member for AWC, and a member of Women of Email, and is a proud mom to daughter Rebecca and dog Ellie Mae. And Tiffany Mathis serves as the CEO and is executive director of Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Illinois. If you're in Springfield, it's kind of hard to miss Tiffany. She's very active in many different areas. Under her leadership, the Boys and Girls Club of Central Illinois has expanded to serve 22 locations. She's an engaged member of the community. She was appointed by Governor J.B. Pritzker to the Board of Trustees for the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. She serves as the commissioner for the Illinois Commission on Volunteerism and Community Service, Serve Illinois, and is past president of the Rotary Club of Midtown Springfield. She serves on the Board of Trustees of the Hoagland Center for the Arts and is a member of the State Assessment Review Committee for the Illinois State Board of Education. That right there just makes me go, how do you even find a work-life balance? Tiffany graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology at Ashford University, and she is mother to 3 children, Avery, Nyla, and August. And I'm Michelle Eccles, and those of you who don't know me, I'm Public Relations Manager for Horace Mann here in Springfield. It's a financial services company that serves educators. My role at Horace Mann, I do both public relations and community relations, and I also do outreach for the Horace Mann Educators Foundation. In addition, in the mornings, I host the morning edition locally for NPR Illinois. And on the side, I'm a partner in a video business with my husband and another couple called New Mac Creative. And our role is to just kind of help people with videos for social media, kind of more of an economical way. And I am mom to 3 now adult children, Sarah, Jack, and Natalie. My youngest just went to college. And our bug puppy, which you'll probably hear in the background, Ripley. And a bug is, just in case you don't know, a Boston Terrier and a pug mix. So that tells you who all we are. And today we're going to hear from Christy and Tiffany about several different things. So first, Christy, Tiffany, let's start with Christy. Tell us just a little bit, give us an idea of what your life is on a daily basis.
Oh, wow. Work-wise, I manage a couple of different voices for my company. So I'm managing all kinds of different media for Color Republic and for Country Living and their Country Living Flowers. Working remotely, I have sensory overload. I'm getting chats, I'm getting WhatsApps, I'm getting emails, I'm getting calls, I'm getting meeting requests. All very exciting. Just requires a lot of coordination. I'm a big time blocker. So I think time blocking is really important, to time block things that you need to get done yourself for work, not someone else's fire, but things that you need to do, as well as, time blocking for things that are important to you to avoid balance and to avoid burnout. So time blocking really helps me with that.
And Tiffany, as we heard all of the things you're doing, what is your typical day like, and how do you do that?
Well, I'm a nonprofit, so there is no typical day, which I enjoy because every day is something, slightly different. Being CEO, though, I spend a great deal of my time on the phone, meeting with people, talking to donors, really just kind of being the face of the organization as far as, telling people what we're doing. So I spent a great deal of time doing that, obviously serving on a lot of different boards and committees. Not just here locally, but also for Boys and Girls Clubs of America. We are, like one of the top 75 performing Boys and Girls Club organizations in the nation. So we get roped into a lot of additional work when it comes to, also kind of supporting Boys and Girls Clubs of America in pushing different things out to different clubs, collaborating. I spend time mentoring other new CEOs to the clubs. And really just lending my support any way that I can. I really love the Springfield community. So, it's kind of hard to say no when people ask for help, if I can actually help. That is probably the new thing that I spend the most time doing, is going like, okay, well, does this actually make sense for me to sit in this seat and help in this way, based on what I professionally do, versus just gobbling up every opportunity. I think that that's something that we do a lot. And then you find yourself kind of unhappy. So that's what I'm spending a lot of this year doing, is rolling off of some boards and making sure that what I do makes sense for who I am and where I'm at in my life.
For sure. I know that saying no is one of my weaknesses. I have a hard time saying no, and I've had to find a way to do that over the last couple of years. And, for a long time, it was very kids focused. And now I feel like I can start to do more, professional kind of things in my life now that the kids are all adults. We do have a question from Anne for Christy. She wants you to tell her more how you achieve time blocking and how you do it and how you battle fires to put out during that time.
Oh, wow. That's a great question. And I've been time blocking ever since, Outlook gave us a calendar. And instead of using my calendar for meetings, you'd get a meeting request and you'd accept it. And now this meeting's on your calendar. I started using it to just block myself out to work on projects. And I'd think about how much time do I want to invest today on this, or how much time do I need to get this done? So maybe I block off 3 different hours on 3 different days to try to work on something. And then a fire comes up and I look at my time blocks and I say, which time block can I move, right? So I look at the other things that were my priorities for the day and I figure out which things can wait, and I just grab that block and I move it to a different day. And I'll tell you, ladies, there are some things that just keep getting moved and moved and moved. And at some point I hit delete and I take it off my schedule, because if I've moved it that many times, it's probably not as important as the other tasks that I was trying to get done. Maybe it was important to me, or maybe I thought it was important to our team. But if it keeps getting moved and nobody's asked about it, then maybe that's the one thing that I can let go. I have a presentation on it, so maybe someday we can do one on time blocking.
Well, and somebody was saying it's hard to stay true to that time blocking.
It is really hard to stay true, you know, and that's just something that you learn as you're time blocking and as you go, is what do you need to alter? What do you need to delete? You know, when do you need to vocalize, hey, this thing's been on my schedule and it's super important. I'm going to check out for the next couple hours and work on this, and let your team know that that's the only way you're going to get something done.
Tiffany, what's your secret to kind of, you know, managing your day?
Oh, there really isn't a secret. It's kind of chaotic, to be honest, but I thrive in that. I'm most certainly a last minute girl sometimes. Done my best work cramming for tests and writing papers at the last minute. I really think you just kind of have to figure out what makes sense for your life. I am a mom of 3 kids. My mother's in a nursing home. My mother is not from this country, so it's just me, my sister, and her that are here on my mom's side. So I've got a lot more than just work to manage. And to be honest, you know, I just do my best to do what I can. I apologize when I can't get something done, and just really kind of prioritize those things that must get done, you know, to meet certain deadlines. But I mean, I think we often find we put a lot more pressure on ourselves than we need to. And, you know, I have plenty of awesomely successful friends who are like, hey, I can't do it. It's not going to happen this week. And you have to feel empowered to tell people when you have to kind of restructure things. That's why I'm saying, like, I think we put a lot more pressure on ourselves instead of just saying, hey, that's not going to happen this week. And here's why, you know, or no explanation at all. We spend a lot of time over explaining our, you know, lives. And we're honestly, as women, working harder than everybody else anyway. So it's like, my goal this year is to be kind to myself and to take time when I need to. I think a lot of us have spent our lives just like grinding really hard. So as you keep moving up, it's like, at what point do you get to catch your breath? So that's really what I'm doing for myself, is just like, these 3 things are going to get done today. And, you know, my day gets hijacked a lot if a donor calls or board member calls, or, you know, so yeah, I just kind of let it roll, you know.
So what do you do, Christy, when you're looking for time for yourself? Are you able to be true to yourself and really give yourself that time?
A funny story. I'm on vacation this week, and, you know, my company has a use it or lose it policy, which I'm not used to. I'm used to carrying stuff over in case I have a big emergency, not taking my time. And my company is based in Ecuador, and that's like really important in their culture, is that you take your time, you don't carry it over, you don't burn out. So I'm on vacation this week. I did go out of town a few days earlier this week, but the rest of these days I'm like sleeping in, and I made a hair appointment, and I'm running some errands, and I'm taking my dog to the park. And my husband last night said, well, what are you doing tomorrow on your next day off? And I said, oh, I'm on this panel, you know, for women in communications, work-life balance. And he just kind of looked at me and he said, isn't that kind of ironic that that's what you're doing on one of your vacation days, is serving on a professional panel? But the thing is, like, this is important to me too, you know, and knowing that I agreed to serve on a panel on a vacation day ensured that I could be here. And it's really important to me. Like Tiffany, you know, I like to do a lot of things, and I like to share, and I like to help others. That's important to me. And, you know, finding the time to do that, sometimes you just have to schedule it. So sometimes you have to say, I'm going to take this day off, but I don't have anything major. I just want to get a few little things done. And I maybe want to do a little pampering thing for myself. I went to lunch with a friend of mine yesterday. I used to work with her, and we were talking about how this was like this really busy time for them because the business meetings were next week. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I know how busy this time is for you. We should have planned lunch on a different day. And she said, no, like I'm getting better about doing things like this. Even if I have a super hectic work day, it's not going to hurt anyone if I step out for an hour and have lunch with a friend and I'm still going to be able to get the stuff done when I get back. We put that pressure on ourselves, like Tiffany said. And she's like, I'm going to come back recharged and do a better job because I took an hour off with a friend. And I was like, wow, great timing for this conversation that we're having, because I'm participating in this panel tomorrow. So you just gave me a really good example to share. And we talked about how important it is as women and mothers and caregivers. And we do a lot of volunteerism and community service. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of everybody else. And whether you're talking about your kids, your parents, your pet, I have an elderly pet who needs to go to the vet 1 day a week for a treatment, and you just like stress yourself out trying to take care of everybody else. And if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be well equipped to do that.
So I know for myself that a lot of times the only time I can get to myself is very first thing in the morning. And for me, that means that I go for a walk with the dog at 4:30 in the morning, which I don't know if all of you have paid attention to the news, but that Memphis situation where that mom was killed, jogging at 4:30 in the morning. But you have to be able to do those kinds of things. You have to be able to find the time to do that for yourself. And for a lot of us, I think that means that our day is longer and we might not get as much sleep. So Tiffany, where do you find time to do things for yourself? Because you have a very packed schedule.
I do have a packed schedule. The funny thing is, like, all of my friends are in nonprofit and service and community service and, all the restaurants that I love to go to, all my friends either own, manage, or, run them. So everywhere I go is fun to me because I have, really tried to find community in all of these things. But when it comes to what I do for myself, I sing with a band in my spare time, which is more stuff to do. But I was a singer, been a singer most of my life. It's what I went to school for the first time. And so that's what I don't really have the capacity to do shows anymore in theater because I just don't have that much time to devote. But I spend a lot of time with my band. We travel a lot and sing. Sometimes, it's getting my nails done, it's getting my hair done. I'm a Black woman, so that's like 5 hours right there sometimes to get the weave taken out, put back in, and we're catching up and talking. I make time for myself to do that because I want to look pretty. Or at least what I feel like makes me look pretty. So, it's things like that. And when you're a mom too, and I've got 3 kids, any time away that's not work or I'm just sitting and doing something for myself is nice. I'm not a quiet person, so sitting in the quiet isn't recharging for me. I recharge around people. I'm very much an extrovert, in case no one knew. I know Amy's on this call. She probably has a hard time believing that. But yeah, I recharge around people and getting out and doing things. I, had some major health issues last year and almost died. So like every moment to me is I want to soak up every hour of the day. Like I just refuse to sit down. That's just how I feel. It's exhausting to other people, but like I'm here for it. I don't ever want to waste time.
Can I add something to that, Tiffany? I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy that you're doing well.
I have an issue on me. I'm not sure if I'm.
I had a pivotal moment similar to that. I lost my brother, who was 29, and my mom in her early 50s, and losing 2 people young. Like it's not going to be long before I'm going to be older than what my mother was. And if that doesn't stop you in your tracks and say, I am not going to work my life away, as long as you don't feel like you're working your life away, like we love what we do. And like what Tiffany said, she, does better when she's really active. And I tend to think that probably most of us are that way. Like I have trouble letting my mind rest. So if you're like that, please put a yes in the chat and let me know. I'm not alone. It's hard for me to let my mind rest and slow down. But losing 2 people like too early was one. I have like 3 pivotal points in my life that have kind of forced me to slow down. And that was one. That it's real easy to burn yourself out. You have a job you love. It's very rewarding. It's, you can love it when it's rewarding and demanding and you have leadership responsibilities, but just forcing yourself to have that balance, and having something like that happen to you in your life really kind of changes your priorities. Even if, you were already on that path, it helps to reinforce them.
And another piece of self-care this year that I really leaned into is I just let people know what I think. We spend a lot of time apologizing before we get ready to say something impactful. And you should, I use as much tact as I can. But I think that, when you work to get to a certain level, you can't both be ineffective and amazing at the same time. So now I say exactly what I think. They're very well thought out thoughts, and I just keep it real with people. This is possible because, or it's not, or I didn't appreciate what you said. I think that women in the workplace, people will talk to us kind of crazy sometimes. Not this year. So I've put a lot of people on notice that be prepared for us to go back and forth, because we will. And I think a lot of us don't realize how many options we have. You don't have to work the job you're working. And it's not a threat as much as it is, you have got to establish how people speak to you and how they treat you. And we all work very hard, and I want to be respected for that. So I think that there's these transition points that we have as women where you got your head down, you're doing the work, you're not making any waves. And then you've done that long enough and you've built something up for yourself, and you need to be able to stand on that. And then as you get older, it very much is about, hey, I've been here for a long time, in the game a long time. So you're going to have to respect me when we speak about things, whether they're tough conversations or not. You need to be bold in your leadership.
And that's a good point, Tiffany. And I think that's something too, that there may be folks on this call who have been in the same job for a while, or who've had success, but I've questioned, maybe it's time to move on. Is that something I want to do? But you get comfortable in your space. Christy, you've had some experience with this recently, where you can find a job, especially now with the current environment, that may work better for you. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, definitely a couple of perspectives to share with you about that. One, I said that losing people was a pivotal moment in my life, and two, COVID and working from home, and not that chaotic time when we all got sent home and everything was chaotic, and our coworkers, were chaotic, and we were working crazy hours. But that time after, when we were still kind of working from home and we'd kind of settled in, I really got more engaged, for one thing, not work related, with my neighbors. I have a few elderly neighbors or single neighbors who were really isolated. And we started chatting out on our porches, and I started, cooking for them, and maybe going to the grocery store for them and helping them through that hard year when we were not supposed to be interacting with people that weren't living in our immediate home. And it made me really think about how I was kind of losing, because I had so much going on. I wasn't really connecting at that level with people that were so close to me right here in my own neighborhood. And it made me think about what my life could be like if I did work from home. My mom always did so much to help everyone in our neighborhood. She was a stay-at-home mom. And, I kind of wanted to have some of that balance and to be able to be there for other people, not just, my family. And also, as the jobs board chair for Women in Communications, I'm really seeing that job postings are changing. Employers are talking about balance and hybrid, letting you work from home a couple of days a week, or remote only if that's what you prefer. And some people don't prefer that. Some people need to be in the office. Tiffany and I and Michelle talked about that, and a few other people on the call, we've talked about that. Shelly, my friend Shelly, has talked about she needs to be around people. But for me, it just felt like it might give me that a little bit of balance that I felt like I was lacking. And once I started looking at remote opportunities, boy, I just didn't even realize how many opportunities were out there. And I actually got approached by a company that we had kind of connected on LinkedIn, and everything that I had in my profile matched what they were looking for. And I was getting served some alerts from them. And it just really worked out great for me. I think I'm at that point in my life where I enjoy working from home, having a little bit of flexibility in my schedule. Some days aren't flexible at all. Because a lot of the only way we can connect with each other is meetings. So I have a lot of Zoom meetings and Teams meetings and things like that. So some days are really hectic as they always were. And then other days it's like, hey, I want to take my lunch at 2 because I'm going to run my dog to the vet. Or instead of taking a lunch, I'm just going to leave at 4 because I, have a board meeting or, something like that going on. I found that has given me, more flexibility looking for remote. And what Michelle said is true. If you're not getting what you need out of your employer and you don't have an opportunity to talk to them about that and change it, there's just so many opportunities out there. I want to share too that, when I was pregnant, my company didn't even have a maternity policy, and we were just kind of shaping things as we went. And after she was born and I was nursing, and the morning was crazy. And then that was like the best part of my daughter's day when she was a baby, is after she nursed, she'd had some sleep, she was happy. But what was I doing? I was, rushing off to take her to daycare. And so I thought to myself, if I just had an extra hour in the morning, what would that do to our quality of life? And I figured out what percentage of hours that was. And it was like around 3% of my workday if I gave up an hour in the morning. And I went to my employer and said, I'd like to give up 3% of my hours for 3% of my pay. It's like simple math. What do you think? And they said yes. And it, so from early on, I was looking for ways to kind of buck the system, not be your traditional 8 to 5, 9 to 5. As she got older, I took that 1 hour of every morning and I moved it to noon on Fridays. And I said, wouldn't it be great if on Fridays I could get off at noon and go pick her up at daycare, and just spend an afternoon with her, that one afternoon a day that we're not rushed, that she doesn't have to be at daycare. And they said yes. So, don't be afraid to ask for what you need. And I was going to say, don't be afraid to ask for what you want, but it's not really what you want, it's what you need. And everybody needs something different and at different points in our lives, right? We have so many roles and responsibilities, likes, interests. There's just, so much noise in our lives. And don't be afraid to think about what you need and figure out a way to ask for that.
I would also chime in that women, if you're in leadership roles, nobody should even have to ask you for that. So one thing I've definitely done as CEO here is make sure that women especially know, bring your baby to work. Newborn, I don't care. Bring the baby to work. Daycare is expensive. They're all still functioning at like 75% capacity. We also changed our maternity leave policy for 12 weeks and for men too, or partners, whoever. So I do think that sometimes women need to be challenged to stop making life harder on other women coming up through the ranks, as if we all need to struggle in a certain way and use your power in your leadership and change policies. It is really that simple. I never want another woman to have knots in her stomach the way that I did when I was a single mom, worried that my kid was going to be sick for the 15th million time this month and that I was going to get fired because I was going to be late or whatever. I will not be the type of leader that allows anybody to feel like that.
So Tiffany,
we should be able to do that.
Tiffany and Christy, but start with Tiffany. You're adamant about that, but some people are in positions where they don't have great leaders and they have that guilt and they have that stress. How would you recommend they go about, one, trying to have that conversation? And if it's a very difficult boss situation, what do they do?
Well, unfortunately, there are still some really poor leaders in the world. And I have a couple thoughts on that. I think that sometimes you need to pay attention to what's going on. And when life becomes so uncomfortable in a way that you really can't control, I feel that that's a moment of maybe I need to move around because, to Christy's point, it's a different time now. It's an employee's market, most certainly. You can make a lot of demands and ask a lot of things now that I would never have recommended 3 to 5 years ago if you wanted to keep your job, because then you'll be pegged as the problematic person. But sometimes you have to decide, is this environment really worth it? Do I need to look elsewhere? We find our jobs and our benefits and we get worried about leaving in a way that men are like, I'm out, I'm leaving, or they'll take 5 promotions in a row and not even think about it, and a lot of us women are really like calculating, is this the right move? So I don't have a perfect answer for that, as much as I can say, if you're experiencing poor leadership, I would, in that way where you're not finding the support that you need to raise your family and do these things that we as women do, it might be time to go. But at some point when you're in leadership as a woman leader, women should not have to ask for those things that you could very well change and fight for. And I think that that's part of the bold leadership. You get to a point where you are going to have to do a lot of fighting, but you need to have the fortitude to do it. I went to my doctor last year and was like, hey, how do I know I'm okay all the time? Because I'm always okay. And was able to get prescribed some antidepressants and things. And I was like, man, I never realized how much I worried until I really wasn't worried about anything. But we don't talk enough about getting medicated. We don't talk enough about telling your doctor, I don't know if I'm okay. people see us and we look super strong. And so you're afraid to say these things. I just would rather be transparent because, like I tell a lot of people, we don't all have it together. So I'd rather you know the truth about me and go like, oh, so you're piecing all of these things together in order to feel fortified. Yeah, I'm not a great mom all the time. I have a village of people that I outsource my kids to do stuff because I can't do it all. And I'm okay with that. I sleep well with that at night. Every mom does it, and I respect that. But again, transparency and what is going on with us as women in the workplace and leadership and all these things is very important because we're giving other women permission to take care of themselves that way.
Christy,
Sometimes you're worrying because you're a worrier and you need to get that under control.
Yeah, sometimes that's just part of our personality, right?
Yeah.
Christy, what would your recommendation be if somebody's in that situation?
Well, I mean, everything that Tiffany said, of course. In my case, it worked to kind of like spell it out and come up with a plan and present a plan and ask for what I need. And if they're not flexible, if they're not willing to give you what you need, if they don't value you as they should, then that is when it's time, to look. And don't be scared. I mean, I was with the same company for 20 years and made a couple of changes in between, and I grew a lot. I learned a lot. I built my skills. It recharged me. But if you're with a great employer and you love what you do and you're not looking to make a change, then you have to kind of state your case, and share what you need and how you're going to make that happen. Every time I asked for flexibility, I had a plan, and I really didn't give up work. I just did it maybe at other times, or did it with other methods, or found more effective and efficient ways to do things. I really wasn't asking to give up work. I was just asking maybe for some flexibility. And I think what Tiffany said about mental health is so important. And I'm so fortunate that now we live in a day when talking about mental health is, not a stigma, it's a priority. I mentioned that I lost my brother young. He committed suicide, and, just always putting that pressure on yourself and not being able to find ways to step back and not beat yourself up. It's just something that's kind of hereditary that runs in my family. And it helped me with my daughter to make sure that she knew that it was okay to talk about that when she was feeling overwhelmed and anxious. It helped me to bring her up in a slightly different way and to see certain signs and to get her help when she needed it. For me, like getting out in nature is really important for my mental health. I notice that when I go on nature walks or I'm near water, I just kind of can check out. And someone asked, like, how do you find ways to check out and to unplug, or to take it down a notch? And it's different for everyone. It might be that you sit on your back deck and you read a book. I really like just getting out and walking in nature. And I think knowing that that's important to your physical and mental health is going to help you to make it a priority.
We had a question about social media sucking up a lot of time. And has anybody done that, take a break or powering down their devices at some point in the day? And I will say that I'm not great about that, because as a media person and a news person, I feel like I always need to be on top of what's going on social media. I do try to scroll through and not get into the weeds with anybody. I obviously, because of my background, don't comment on any kind of news things because I want to be impartial. And so I don't invest myself in people's social media. Not to say that there aren't some times where I let it get under my skin. But what about you, Christy, with social media? What do you do with that?
That's really hard for me. And that is one thing I wanted to bring up, because part of my job is being a social media manager. And since, most of us or all of us are in some form of communications, whether we manage the social media ourselves or it's part of what our communications team does, or we oversee it, oversee the people that are managing it. It's really hard when it's what you do for a living, too. So I have just had to say, by a certain time of the night, I am not going to look at it anymore, because it was keeping me awake. Even, looking at social media from 9 to 10 before I get ready to go to bed was actually like stimulating me more instead of letting me wind down. And managing social media, I've always had this mentality that when someone's commenting on our posts, like I want to have great engagement and reply. And as long as you reply within 24 hours, you're doing good. So if you do that for a living, like step back after 5 and, let those comments wait until the morning unless it's a crisis communication situation, obviously. And then personally, it is hard because I keep up with like a lot of people that live out of town, or I keep up on events. I look for jobs to add to the Women in Communications job board. There's just so many things we get. I'm most active on Facebook and LinkedIn. Those are the two that I personally get the most out of. I like looking at pretty pictures on Instagram, and Pinterest. But I think it's just really important to give yourself a cutoff and just say, I'm not going to look at it during these times of the day. Maybe on the weekends, just don't even bring it up in the morning so that you don't start to get sucked in.
And
but it is a challenge.
That brought to mind too, which I think has changed a little bit with the pandemic too, the need to answer email all the time. And that since we were home for the pandemic, that sometimes you were expected to answer it on hours that you wouldn't typically be working and things like that. So Tiffany, how do you, you're a leader and you have staff and you're in a little bit different situation than say a corporate world or things like that. But how do you manage that responsive time from your employees and yourself?
Well, I will say, we've worked really hard to add to our infrastructure because for a while it was like 3 of us in leadership. And so it was a little crazy. So we've gotten a lot more people here. And I'll tell you what, serving on school board really helped me hone my skills on what I will and won't respond to, because everyone doesn't need a response. But for me, people know if it's important, text me and I'll see it. I do see my email notifications as they come in, and I just kind of go like, oh, I can deal with that tomorrow. Or because I'm responsible for such a large organization, I have to be mindful that things are coming up. But if it's something big, people know how to get in touch with me. But yeah, I would say that definitely comes with the territory on this job is, it's 24/7 again, which is why I'm kind to myself during the week because I'm on all the time. I spend a lot of time going to events at night that, I could be at home instead, but I'm representing the club. So my schedule in my mind is, if I'm going to be working at an event or doing something until 10 o'clock at night, I'm not going into the office at 8 in the morning. It makes no sense because I'm working later than everybody else.
Right.
So, and one other thing I will say is this, as you move up, be mindful that it is not everybody's job to coach you up. And sometimes you need to let people know that their work getting done has nothing to do with whether you're at your desk or not. People love to hold folks accountable sometimes. And I'm like, we don't do the same thing though. You know what I mean? Like, people feel like, well, I didn't see you at work today. Well, did anything you need not get done?
Or I might have been at an event outside of work, so I'm not at my desk. You have no idea what I've been doing.
Nope, don't owe everyone it doesn't have to be a conversation. So again, I have grown a lot as a woman, as a professional woman, as a professional in general, to kind of set some boundaries that I didn't necessarily have before because you just feel so answerable to everybody all the time. And you're really not.
We had a question earlier from Ann, and I'm not sure if we addressed it, where you have limited staffs and the demands are high, and how do you manage that anxiety about what to get done and all of that?
I just feel like, for me, there are deadlines of things that have to happen, whether it's making sure that our insurance is in compliance, that payroll's being done. And then a lot of those other things, it's just kind of like, I prioritize, how serious is this? Do I need to get this done today? Is this a conversation I absolutely have to have? Now, I'm a bit more responsive because I have donors, large donors that I'll wake up at midnight for if they want me to. Like, those are the things I'm committed to. But I think for me, it's really just prioritizing, again, what the hierarchy of importance on those things. Sometimes we put a lot of more stress on ourselves than we need to. And if I know anything about other people that I admire in this community that are doing greater things than I'm doing, they've got very clear boundaries that I'm not going to return your call until tomorrow. And it's like, oh, okay. So I think it's about setting boundaries, but also just prioritizing what needs to get done, like you do with everything else.
And Tiffany, you've said you've grown a lot. And Christy, I'm sure that you feel like that too. We may have some folks on here who are fairly new to, their job, or they're younger and haven't had that much growth. But it doesn't mean that they don't have, the experience and the knowledge to do a great job. So what do you recommend as far as how do you make sure you continue to grow and not get stuck in the rut?
For me, which I'll speak to just because I'm 39, but a lot has happened for me in the past 7 years. I said yes to everything in the beginning. I joined Rotary. I started building my network. I was everywhere all the time, anything anybody needed me to do, because it started to grow my network. The other thing I crave is strong women. So instead of being defensive, when you meet a woman that's like, ooh, I'm like, ooh, mentor me. Tell me what I could be better about. Being objective about what I'm not good at. Knowing I can't do everything and be everything to everybody, but I keep a lot of women around me that I think and perceive to be better than me in a lot of different ways. And additionally, I seek out professional development. I went through a program called Leadership Illinois. It's statewide for women. And that was a game changer for me. I mean, unbelievable support from women. I've never gone through anything like it. So I've just really tried to put myself in a position to just expose myself to as much as I can, knowing that it doesn't mean I'm less than. I've just got some really great women around me that I admire, and they admire me. So we're learning from each other. But I would say if you're young and really looking to come up and move and shake, it's serving on boards, it's building your network, it's humbling yourself to know like you could be better, and then finding women to sharpen you that we can learn from. Because there's a lot of people that are deemed difficult as women. And I've gotten to know these women and I'm like, oh my, you're amazing. People are often, have some type of feeling about somebody that they see as dynamic. And instead of saying, how did you do that? It's, oh, I don't like her and she's too mean and she's too tough and it's this and that. So those are the women that I run to.
Christy?
Well, definitely when you're younger and building your career and, building your skills and trying to figure out like what excites you the most and where your passions are, like don't put all your eggs in one basket, and I've had this conversation with my daughter a lot, like who you are at work isn't only who you are, so serving on the Women in Communications board and serving on, the Crisis Nursery board and doing freelance projects. So like building my skills for what I do, but maybe not necessarily just for my company. I did a lot of freelance work where I met other people, at other employers and got to work on some different projects that were challenging. And I really got to build my skills. I wanted some leadership opportunities and, there isn't always necessarily, if you work like at a small organization, room to move up. So I sought out, chair positions and president positions of boards and committee chairs and, just doing other things that gave me fulfillment. And, you're not only going to get your fulfillment from work, you're going to get it from the other things in your life, meeting other people, expanding your horizons, building those skills. So I would say don't just look to, your current employer and what you're doing at your job to fulfill you, get out and meet other people, ask to serve on committees, do something totally different. The things I did on the Women in Communications board that I enjoyed the most were the things I didn't do at work. So like when I did the communications and the e-newsletters and the website, like I could do that without even thinking about it. I could whip those skills out or those tasks out and mark them done. But when I managed membership, when I managed putting on a seminar and getting speakers and, and getting a facility and figuring out the budget and things that I don't do during the day at work. Wow. Like that was so exciting and challenging. And I learned a lot and I met a lot of people I wouldn't have met otherwise.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that too. As the kids were growing up, you don't have a lot of time to do things when you're doing work and you're doing the kids. And, Tiffany, you've talked about your network of people to, have help you with your kids. And if you don't have that around, it becomes even more difficult, but you've got to find outlets to expand your network. And a lot of times you can do that remotely, or you can do it by being part of the kids' organizations. Like I got involved in Springfield Muni because my kids were involved in theater and I had somewhat of an interest in that. And it wasn't necessarily my comfort zone, but it ended up being a great investment. And it's something that, you can find many different organizations. And I would say to challenge yourself to try organizations. Maybe there's something you've always wanted to do, but you're just kind of, I don't have time for that. Find an organization that focuses on that and try it, because then you might find a whole new network of people to help you in the community. We have talked a lot. It is 12:45. Does anybody else have any questions in chat that you would like to ask Christy or Tiffany?
Or tips you want to share? We learned from you. So
And if you have tips that you want to share, I would say go ahead and turn your video on and talk with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Nancy, girl, I work out when I can.
Well,
I
I made the mistake that I would put my Y visits on my calendar back in the day at SIU, and then something would come up and I'd cross it off and I wouldn't go. And I'm still wearing all that stress of those 33 years. And now, I'd give anything to have not skipped all those Y visits. And now those Y visits 3 times a week are on my calendar, and I will not miss them for all the tea in China. So do not do that. Do not do that. Do not do that. I'll say it as often as I can.
That's a really good point. I mean, we talked a little bit about mental health. We've talked about health, but you got to take care of yourself. If you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't help anybody.
And what goes along with that, I go late morning because I also gave up 6:30 and 7 a.m. meetings with physicians. I go later and I only do lunches on Tuesday and Thursdays. And my friends know that because I'm at the Y Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And so if you want to have lunch with me, you have lunch on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that helps me kind of control, or not control, but I have both, but I honor both.
We've got a few folks commenting in chat. Amy said, I made myself promise to be realistic about what I'm willing to do and keep it simple and attainable. That's important too. Some of us just dive right in and, try to do too much too quickly. And then we burn out and we don't do it, right?
Jesse, hire the housekeeper, girl. I don't do toilets. These are just things where I'm like, why am I spending my time cleaning the house and somebody else can do that? That's not my ministry, as I like to say. Pay somebody to do the stuff you don't like doing. My grandma, that's the best advice she ever gave me. She said, Tiffany, outsource everything you don't want to do. Mowing the yard, whatever.
I totally had a housekeeper when Becca was little.
Yep. I need to know who your housekeepers are.
I've gone through a couple, but I'm just saying it's definitely worth it. You come home from work, it smells good. The carpet's freshly got lines in it. I'm like, oh, this is great.
Right? It makes you feel good. You didn't have to do any of it.
Yeah.
Melissa Hahn says, I seek out women at the office who also believe in fitness classes and professional development because it's harder for bosses to say no to a group. And that's a good point too. And it's a motivator. Other people get you motivated to go on the days that you don't want to go.
Yeah, and professional development is really important. I like that you included fitness and professional development. I mean, I think it's so important to work for an employer that encourages that and that you take that time away, not just a virtual 1 hour thing, but take some time away from the office, at least once a year, to do a really good professional development, class on something that you're really interested in or passionate about, or that you want to learn how to do that you don't do already.
And I would say too, that there are a lot of people I talk to who don't take their vacation or sick time. It's like, you need to take that. It's very important. It's very important for your mental health, for your health, for your family. We didn't talk a lot about balancing the family aspect and that can really, if your daughter or your son has an issue, that can derail everything, right? So then you have to really think about how to get all that other stuff done while you're taking care of that crisis. But that's what is most important. And I have made it a priority to work for places that value family, and that if I have a situation, they understand that I have to take care of them right now. All right. Anybody else have any other comments or questions? I think we've had.
I'll share a little warning signal that I learned about too late, and that this is Nancy Zimmer's. I would go in on Saturdays to work and catch up. And I loved my staff, especially at the tail end. Obviously, over the year, I had different people work for me over that long period of time. But I was the only one there on Saturdays. And if you're the only one in the office on the weekends, something's wrong. And so if you're the boss or you're a senior leader, you shouldn't be the only one trying to make things work in the office. So I didn't pay attention to that warning sign.
Well, I want to say thank you to Christy and Tiffany. I think we'll wrap things up. We've had a great session. We did record this today. So if somebody missed it and you're a member, you'll be able to get to that in our member area on our website. But I want to say thank you to Christy and Tiffany for the time today. And thanks to all of you for joining us and sharing your struggles and your secrets to, balancing all of that. And Tiffany has put her email in. So if you want to connect with her after this for any reason, and I'm sure Christy will do the same thing, but I'm going to toss it over to Brandy to wrap things up. And thank you again to all of you for joining us.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you so much to our presenters. I really enjoyed this conversation, and it's nice to know that other professional women have to work at their work-life balance. So it was good to know that I wasn't alone there. And thanks to all of you for joining the webinar today. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter to learn about future programs we're hosting. Next month on October 13th, we'll have an in-person lunch program at the Sangamon Club with Bonnie Burns of BAM Marketing. If you're not familiar with her, you'll have to look her up. Heard great things about her. She will talk to us about the shiny red ball condition and how to build a more effective strategic marketing plan. So to be sure you have the details, sign up for our e-newsletter. It's just go to www.awcspringfield.org and click on join our email list. So you'll get all of our program alerts. So thanks, everybody. It's been great seeing you all today. Take care.